The Ferrera mansion, which once represented wealth and authority, became the scene of an unexpected and devastating tragedy. Carla, a basic domestic worker, discovered a winning lottery ticket. The discovery revealed dark secrets and exposed the hidden vulnerabilities of a seemingly impenetrable family. Carla will face moral dilemmas and unimaginable challenges amid intrigues, betrayals, and a desperate search for redemption. Her journey, full of suffering, courage, and change, promises not only to transform her life, but also to redefine what justice and compassion mean in a society corroded by corruption. Mrs. Ferrera entered the kitchen, a 38-year-old woman whose inner bitterness contrasted with her outward beauty. She was known for being extremely demanding and having no patience with her employees. Her husband, Mr. Ferrera, a businessman attentive to his business and investments, accompanied her. Carla was nervous as she finished preparing the soup and placed the first portion in a delicate porcelain bowl. Mrs. Ferrera took the spoon and tasted the soup with an air of authority. A scornful smile appeared on her lips, and her expression of disdain twisted on her face. "This is insufferable," she shouted, throwing the spoon forcefully into the dish. "Do you intend to poison us with this amount of salt?" Carla felt she was being cornered. At that moment, her years of humiliation condensed, awakening a rebellious impulse in her eyes. She had always been a dedicated maid who strove to please her employers, but at that moment, it seemed all her efforts had been in vain. She felt wronged and looked to Mr. Ferrera for intervention. Mr. Ferrera, concerned about the situation, tried to calm his wife. "Dear, it's not that bad. We can make more soup." However, Mrs. Ferrera continued with her sharp voice, pointing out every imaginable deficiency in Carla's work, turning the kitchen into a battlefield of verbal accusations. Every word from Mrs. Ferrera felt like a whip to Carla's soul. As she collected the dishes with trembling hands, she felt anger and helplessness growing inside her. Mrs. Ferrera's statements echoed in her brain, and she struggled to hold back her tears. Carla thought about her life and the humiliations she had endured as she retreated to her small room in the mansion that night. She worried about her family, especially her younger brother, who depended on her. The lack of respect and dignity with which she was treated hurt her the most, not the salt in the soup. The anger that had surfaced in her eyes during the argument in the kitchen did not fade. On the contrary, it began to grow, fueled by the memories of all the times she had been humiliated and disrespected. Mr. Ferrera, in his attempt to maintain family harmony, did not realize the intensity of Carla's hurt. He saw her merely as an unhappy employee, not the strong and resilient woman she truly was. The Ferreras spoke in tense whispers about debts, gambling, and business that were on the verge of collapsing. Carla was shocked to learn that her oppressors were as vulnerable as she was. She cried that night not only for the humiliation she had suffered, but also for the discovery that her employers, who always seemed so powerful, were actually fragile and vulnerable. She had never thought of revenge before, but a thought of revenge began to germinate in her mind. Carla woke up the next day with swollen eyes from crying. As she began her daily tasks at the Ferrera mansion, the sun barely peeked through the silk curtains. Her movements were mechanical, though her mind was still preoccupied with the events of the previous night. While cleaning Mr. Ferrera's office, a glint caught her attention. A lottery ticket was almost hidden among disordered papers. Carla felt her heart race as she held the ticket with trembling hands. She thought of a different life, far from oppression and humiliation. She put the ticket in her apron pocket without thinking twice and continued her tasks, trying to remain calm. The next day, she heard Mrs. Ferrera's hysterical screams. "My ticket! Where can my ticket be?" The house turned into a storm of accusations and relentless searches. Carla denied everything, her heart pounding. It felt as if the paper in her pocket was made of lead. Late into the night, they continued searching. Every corner of the mansion was searched, and all the employees were interrogated. Carla struggled to maintain her composure as tension filled the air. Mrs. Ferrera grew increasingly furious and began personally inspecting each employee. Carla felt her employer's hands running over her body, searching for something. Carla turned on the small television in her room that night. When the presenter announced the winning lottery numbers, she was stunned to see that the numbers matched those on the ticket in her pocket. She now possessed $1 million that could change lives. Her initial joy quickly turned into a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: guilt, fear, and hope. Carla was left wondering what to do now. Return the ticket and go back to her life of servitude, or seize this opportunity regardless of the consequences? She thought of her brother, who desperately needed medical help. Although it was clear she had made a decision, the moral impact was significant. The pressure of the situation began to weigh on her as she pondered her options. Mrs. Ferreira's words still echoed in her mind, reminding her of the constant humiliation she endured. On the other hand, the image of her frail and sick brother strengthened her resolve to change their lives. That night, Carla placed the ticket under her pillow and went to bed with a heavy heart. In her dreams, there were many possible futures and also many nightmares to unravel. She was aware that any choice she made would change her life forever. The next morning, the Ferreira mansion was buzzing with activity. Mrs. Ferreira was relentless, while Mr. Ferreira tried to remain calm. Carla continued with her daily tasks, trying to appear normal, but her mind was elsewhere. She knew she needed to make a decision immediately. The lottery ticket in her pocket hung like a sign of freedom and a source of guilt. Although fate had given her a hand, the moral price was still undecided. Carla couldn't sleep that night as she lay in her small room in the mansion. The lottery ticket and the potential consequences of her actions consumed her mind. She knew that the decision she would make would impact not only her own life, but also her brother's, and even the Ferreiras. Carla turned on the television to distract herself, but she couldn't take her mind off the ticket under her pillow. She was confirmed as a millionaire when the winning numbers were announced. She was filled with excitement, allowing her to dream of a different life, away from oppression and daily humiliations. However, her initial joy quickly turned into a storm of conflicting feelings. Her guilt for keeping the ticket, fear of being discovered, and a growing hope of finally being able to change her life and her brother's accompanied her. Although she could now afford the expensive treatment he needed, the moral cost was high. Carla faced a moral dilemma. She knew she had made a mistake by keeping the ticket, but returning it would mean continuing to live as a servant under the constant oppression of the Ferreiras. She thought of the harsh words and inhumane treatment she had received each time she was humiliated. The ticket symbolized an escape, an opportunity for justice, albeit one she would carry out herself. Carla got up from her bed and began pacing the room, trying to make sense of what she was doing. She knew she needed to make a decision immediately. As she looked at the ticket, she felt the weight of the paper in her hands. She saw the bright future it promised, but also felt the shadow of guilt. She thought of her brother, who was in a delicate situation and desperately needed medical help. He was her main motivation, the reason she endured all the challenges and humiliations. The ticket could give him the chance to live a better life, free from the illness that tormented him. The next day, Carla decided to go to the hospital to see her brother while wrestling with her moral dilemma. She hoped to find the clarity she needed to make a decision by seeing him. She woke up early the following morning and went to the hospital with the ticket hidden. Carla's heart ached as she saw her brother tied to machines in the hospital bed. Although he was young and full of vitality, his illness had weakened him. The doctor said there was a new treatment available, but it was very expensive. Carla knew the ticket could be used to pay for it, but at what cost? She wept as she held her brother's hand. In that moment, morality, justice, and brotherly love became more important than money. Carla sighed deeply and decided she would do whatever it took to save her brother, even if it meant facing the consequences of her choices. Carla returned to the Ferreira mansion with new determination after making her decision. Although she knew the next steps would be difficult, she was prepared to face any risk for her brother. The tension in the mansion was higher than ever before. Mrs. Ferreira, tormented by the loss of the ticket, became more cruel each day. Her screams echoed through the hallways, spreading fear. Carla remained silent as she observed everything. Every time Mrs. Ferreira's cruelty increased, so did Carla's determination. She knew it was time to act. The decision to save her brother with the ticket gave her the strength to endure the daily abuses. But paranoia began to set in. Every strange sound and suspicious look felt like an imminent threat. That night, Carla made a decision. She packed a small suitcase, placed everything she needed inside, and hid the ticket in a safe place. She performed her tasks calmly throughout the next day, but her heart raced every moment. She sensed Mrs. Ferreira getting closer to the truth. The unexpected arrival of Sophia, the Ferreira's daughter, brought new life to the house as the tension reached its peak. Sophia, who had studied abroad, seemed different from her parents. She exhibited an understanding and kindness that Carla was not accustomed to seeing. One day, Sophia found Carla in the kitchen. "Carla, is everything all right? You seem worried," she said, showing genuine concern. Carla felt the words stuck in her throat. Seeking relief in the young woman's apparent understanding, she considered confessing everything to Sophia. But the memory of past humiliations held her back. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ferreira made a drastic decision in her desperation over the lost ticket. She hired a private investigator to uncover the missing ticket. Carla panicked. She knew she had to act immediately. She hoped her hiding place was secure and prayed no one would discover it. The investigator, a man with a grim appearance, began scouring the house. His presence constantly threatened Carla. She felt the noose tightening around her, as all her movements were being watched. Carla went to the hospital to see her brother when she was overwhelmed. Seeing him connected to the machine, struggling to survive, nearly broke her. Carla bit her tongue as she saw the hope in her brother's eyes. She knew it was imperative to keep the ticket safe for his benefit. However, the tension was mounting. Carla felt she could not keep the secret any longer, as the Ferreira mansion was filled with tension. Carla prepared to flee that night while the entire house was asleep. She knew she could no longer bear such a burden. She left her room with the ticket safely tucked away, ready to leave the mansion forever. Every shadow and sound seemed like a threat as Carla advanced through the dark hallway of the mansion. As she clutched the small suitcase to her heart pounded in her chest and her hands sweated. The lottery ticket felt like it weighed tons, hidden in a safe place. As she reached the foyer, she stopped abruptly when a voice emerged from the shadows. The private investigator, with a calculated and calm tone, said, "Carla." The words flowed from her mouth in a moment of desperation. She admitted everything. The ticket she found, her aspirations, and the fear of being discovered. The investigator listened in silence, his expression shifting from surprise to calculated consideration. When Carla finished, breathless and on the verge of tears, he spoke with a soft but firm voice. "I have a proposition for you. I can help you claim the prize without anyone knowing. I can provide the necessary contacts. In return, I expect a generous compensation." Carla was stunned and looked at him. She felt the offer was a solution to her moral dilemma. Could she trust this man? Was she merely exchanging one problem for another, even more severe one? Carla found herself at a decision point that would forever change the course of her life, with her heart in her throat and her mind in turmoil. Accepting the investigator's proposal represented not only a risk, but also the only way to ensure her brother received the desperately needed treatment. She weighed the immediate need to save her brother against the desire for justice. Ultimately, she made a decision. Carla said with a trembling but determined voice, "I accept." The investigator smiled with satisfaction. "Excellent decision. We must act immediately." He detailed the plan, including how they would claim the prize, his contacts at the lottery, and how they would avoid suspicion. To avoid pursuit, Carla and the investigator left in an old car in the early hours. Carla looked in the rearview mirror, her heart in her throat, fearing the sight of headlights following them. The investigator appeared calm and confident. As he drove, he explained, "I have a friend at the lottery. He will help us claim the prize without raising doubts. However, we need to be cautious." Carla felt a mix of guilt and hope. While thinking of her brother and the prospect of a better future, she also remembered Mrs. Ferreira's humiliations and cruelty. Every mile away from the mansion brought a sense of relief and guilt. Meanwhile, Sophia watched the chaos at the mansion with a mix of horror and suspicion. She was so familiar with Carla that she knew there had to be more to her departure. Sophia confronted her parents with determination to uncover the truth. "How did you treat Carla?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "She is not a bad person. I must know what is happening here." A tense silence followed. Mr. Ferreira, pale and disheartened, tried in vain to calm things down. "We need to find a solution," he said in a weak voice. "Our reputation is at stake." However, Sophia was not satisfied with vague answers. She wanted the truth. Carla and the investigator were nearing their destination when a nervous man, the investigator's friend, greeted them with a tense smile. As they began discussing the ticket, he said, "We must act quickly." Just as it seemed everything was going according to plan, Carla noticed something strange in the friend's demeanor. While holding the ticket, his eyes avoided hers, and his hands trembled slightly. Carla felt a chill. Was she about to be betrayed again? At that moment, the office doors swung open. Sophia Ferreira, the Ferreira's daughter, returned to the mansion after years of studying abroad. Everyone was surprised by her arrival, especially her parents, who were silently grappling with the missing lottery ticket. Sophia brought with her a fresh perspective and an insightful gaze. From the moment she arrived, Sophia sensed something was wrong. There was an air of tension and unease in the mansion. She soon realized something deeper was amiss. Observing the employees and her mother's erratic behavior, Sophia began piecing together the puzzle. One day, while helping to organize papers, Sophia found Carla in the kitchen. Noticing the worried expression on the maid's face, she asked, "Carla, is everything all right?" Her voice was full of concern. Surprised by Sophia's kindness, Carla hesitated before answering. "I'm fine, Miss Sophia." She tried to disguise her anxiety, saying, "Just a bit tired." However, Sophia was not convinced. She knew there was more behind the evasive response. In the following days, Sophia continued to observe carefully. She noticed her mother was more irritable than usual, frequently bursting into fits of anger for seemingly no reason. The employees, including Carla, seemed to walk on eggshells, fearful of making any mistake that might trigger Mrs. Ferreira's wrath. Determined to uncover the truth, Sophia began discreetly talking to the employees. She was eager to find out what was really happening. During these conversations, she learned about her mother's hiring of a private investigator. This only increased her suspicion that something very serious had occurred. Meanwhile, Carla wrestled with her conscience. She still remembered the investigator's proposition and knew it was time to act. However, Sophia's presence made her rethink some of her decisions. The young woman had something about her that made Carla believe there might be a more honorable way to resolve the situation. Sophia was not content to leave things as they were. One evening, she decided to confront her parents directly. During dinner, she said, "Mom, Dad, I need to know what's going on. You are hiding something serious in this house." Mrs. Ferreira tried to downplay the situation, surprised by her daughter's boldness. "It's nothing, Sophia, just routine issues," she said, but her voice trembled, revealing her inner anxiety. Sophia was not fooled. "This is not routine, Mom. Since I arrived, I have felt that something is very wrong. What happened with Carla? Why did you hire a private investigator?" she asked, looking her mother in the eyes. Mr. Ferreira attempted to intervene, seeing the situation spiraling out of control. "Sophia, your mother is just worried about some personal matters. There's no need for you to get involved," he tried to soothe his daughter. But Sophia was undeterred. "I care about this family and the people who work for us. I have the right to know if something is wrong. What did you do to Carla? I want to help her." Under the pressure of Sophia's questions, Mrs. Ferreira began to break down. "It's all her fault," she said, her voice filled with anger and desperation. "Carla stole something very valuable from us." Sophia stared at her mother in disbelief. "Stole? What could she have taken that would make you act this way?" she asked, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. Mr. Ferreira, realizing there was no longer a way to keep the truth hidden, confessed. "It's the lottery ticket, Sophia, a winning ticket. Your mother believes Carla took it." Sophia was silent for a moment as she processed the information. Then she turned back to her parents. "And why didn't you call the police if she did? Why hire a private investigator?" Mrs. Ferreira, tearful, admitted, "I just wanted to resolve this without any scandal," her voice breaking. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Sophia decided to take charge. We need to resolve this, but fairly. Carla deserves a chance to defend herself, and we need to listen to what she has to say. With part of the truth revealed, Sophia knew she needed to act quickly to resolve the issue before it escalated further. She requested a meeting with the private investigator her mother had hired to gain a full understanding of what was happening. Initially, the investigator, a man with a grim appearance and melancholic demeanor, was reluctant to disclose information to Sophia. However, the young woman was not intimidated. She persisted, reminding him that she had the right to know what was going on in her home. "Mr. Alves," Sophia said firmly, "I know you were hired by my mother to investigate the disappearance of the lottery ticket. I need to be informed of all the findings you've made so far." Alves looked at Sophia with a calculating expression. "My investigation is confidential, Miss Ferreira. Your mother hired me, and I can't reveal details without her consent." But Sophia stood her ground. "My mother is emotionally distressed and unable to comprehend what's happening. As her daughter and a member of this family, it's my right to know. We need to resolve this fairly, please, Mr. Alves." Finally, seeing Sophia's determination, Alves relented. "Very well. I haven't found concrete evidence that Carla took the ticket so far, but there are some indications that she might know more than she's letting on." Sophia thanked the investigator and began contemplating her next move. She knew she needed to confront Carla, but not in a way that would make her more defensive. She decided to speak to her directly, but with kindness. When she found Carla in the kitchen, Sophia asked for a private conversation. "I need to talk to you about something important, Carla," she said with a serious but friendly expression. "I know my mother thinks you took the lottery ticket. I want to hear your side of the story." Initially reluctant, Carla felt cornered. "I don't know anything, Miss Sophia. I promise I didn't take anything." Seeking the truth, Sophia looked at Carla earnestly. "Carla, I believe in you, but we need to clarify this. Please, if you know anything, tell me. My intention is to help, not to punish." After a moment of hesitation, Carla was convinced by Sophia's sincere eyes. "I confess," with a trembling voice, "I found the ticket, Miss Sophia. I was lost. I feared my situation would worsen." Sophia felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "Why didn't you tell us? We could have resolved this." With tears in her eyes, Carla explained, "I was desperate. My brother is very sick and needs expensive medical attention. I saw the ticket as an opportunity to help him. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know what to do." With a heavy heart, Sophia thought quickly about Carla's situation. "We'll find a solution. I'll talk to my parents and try to convince them to reach an agreement that benefits everyone." Relieved to have finally confessed, Carla agreed to trust Sophia. She knew the young woman had the best chance of resolving the situation without causing further harm. Meanwhile, Alves continued his investigation. He knew he needed more evidence to provide a complete explanation of the case. His suspicions led him to scrutinize Carla and the other employees more closely. The tension in the mansion grew with the investigator's constant presence. An atmosphere of fear and mistrust permeated as all the employees knew they were being watched. Determined to resolve the issue, Sophia spoke to her parents again. "We need to settle this quickly and fairly," she stated. Carla admitted she found the ticket, but she was in a difficult situation. "We need to find a solution that works for everyone." Mr. Ferreira, always concerned about the family's reputation, hesitated. "Sophia, this could ruin our reputation. We must be careful." Mrs. Ferreira, despite her reluctance, finally agreed. "Maybe Sophia is right. We need to find a solution that doesn't harm our family." With her parents' support, Sophia began thinking of a solution. She knew the next steps would be challenging, but she was determined to find a fair resolution for everyone. As the tension at the Ferreira mansion reached its peak, Sophia decided it was time to resolve the situation once and for all. She called for a meeting with Carla, the investigator Alves, and her parents. It was time to clarify the facts and reach a fair solution. The meeting was scheduled for the evening, in the mansion's living room. Everyone present felt the pressure of the moment. Carla was desperate, knowing her fate was about to be decided. Sophia led the meeting with firmness. Our goal here is to resolve the issue of the lottery ticket. Carla has admitted to finding the ticket, but was in a difficult situation. We need to make a fair decision. Mrs. Ferreira crossed her arms, still angry. She should have told us from the beginning. It's theft, Sophia. We can't just let it go. Sitting next to her employer, Carla felt the weight of the words and lowered her head, but Sophia did not back down. I understand, Mother, but we need to consider the circumstances. Carla was trying to save her brother's life. We need to be compassionate and fair. Mr. Ferreira, concerned about balancing things, suggested, perhaps we can reach a compromise. Carla can return the ticket, and we help pay for her brother's treatment in exchange. Carla looked at Mr. Ferreira, surprised by the unexpected offer. You would do that for me? She asked, her voice trembling. Before he could respond, Investigator Alves intervened. There's something else everyone should know. During my investigation, I discovered some irregularities in the Ferreira family's business dealings. If this information goes public, it could cause an even bigger scandal. Alves' revelation hit the room like a bomb. Mr. Ferreira turned pale, and Mrs. Ferreira looked at her husband with anger and surprise. What have you been doing? She demanded, her voice filled with fury. Mr. Ferreira struggled to explain, but no words came out. He knew his misdeeds were now coming to light. I did what I thought was necessary to protect our family, he said, his voice breaking. Seeing the unfolding disaster, Sophia made a decision. We need to handle this openly. If we keep hiding the truth, we're only delaying the inevitable. Let's tell the truth and deal with the consequences together. Carla, feeling a mix of relief and fear, agreed. I'll return the ticket and you can use it as you see fit. I just ask that you help my brother. Mrs. Ferreira, reluctantly emotional, agreed. Let's proceed, but everyone should understand that all actions have consequences. With the decision made, everyone braced for the storm. Investigator Alves agreed to help the family with the legal consequences, provided they cooperated fully. The following morning, the Ferreira family held a press conference to reveal everything. Carla, nervous but determined, stood beside Sophia. She knew what she was about to do was the right thing for everyone involved. The press room was packed with journalists eager to get all the details. Mr. Ferreira spoke first, explaining the situation with the lottery ticket and admitting the irregularities in his business dealings. We made serious mistakes, and we are here now to rectify them, he stated. My family and I are prepared to face the consequences of our actions. Carla, though trembling, spoke firmly. I found the lottery ticket and kept it to help my sick brother. I apologize for my actions and acknowledge that I was wrong. I hope you can understand my situation. Sophia concluded the speech with a promise of transparency and fairness. We are committed to rectifying our wrongs and helping those affected by our mistakes. This includes ensuring Carla's brother receives the necessary medical care. The press conference had a significant impact. The media quickly spread the news, leaving public opinion divided. While some supported the Ferreira family's decision to confess and seek redemption, others criticized their mistakes. Despite the tense atmosphere in the mansion, there was a sense of relief. Everyone was ready to face the challenge together, knowing the road ahead would be tough. Carla and the Ferreira family decided to face the truth and seek redemption, marking the beginning of a significant change in their lives. Although controversial, the press conference offered a new perspective on justice, compassion, and accountability. After the conference, Carla felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She was prepared to deal with the consequences of her choices, knowing her life would never be the same. The returned lottery ticket would now benefit the Ferreira family and others in need. Sophia led the establishment of a foundation to help those affected. The foundation would use the lottery prize money and the assets recovered from the family's illegal businesses. To ensure transparency and fairness, the Ferreiras and representatives of the original charity beneficiaries would work together to manage the foundation. Mrs. Ferreira, still dealing with the aftermath of her actions, began to show signs of change. Public humiliation and selective amnesia caused by the accident forced her to reassess her priorities. Seeking a way to make amends, she started actively participating in the foundation's activities. Mr. Ferreira, on the other hand, had to face the legal consequences of his actions. Knowing he had to pay for his crimes, He was determined to use his remaining time to make a positive change. With Sophia and Carla's support, he began working on rehabilitation programs for businessmen involved in illegal activities. Meanwhile, Carla visited her brother in the hospital. The foundation, now funding his treatment, began to show positive results. Seeing his improvement was the greatest reward for her. Each small progress was proof she had made the right decision. The Ferreira mansion, once a symbol of wealth and power, transformed into a hub of community activities. Charity events organized by Sophia and Carla attracted support and attention from people across society. The foundation's work began changing many lives, bringing hope and opportunities to the less fortunate. Sophia and Carla formed a strong partnership based on mutual trust and respect. Working together, they turned the foundation into a model of social justice and corporate responsibility. Inspired by their story, many people sought truth and redemption despite the obstacles. Seeing the foundation's progress and the Ferreira's transformation, investigator Alves offered his services to the cause. He helped the foundation clear the names of many other victims of fraud and injustice, using his skills to investigate and expose other corrupt practices. However, the path to redemption was challenging. The foundation faced many issues, such as public mistrust and resistance from some social groups. Nevertheless, Sophia, Carla, and the other team members persisted, believing in the value of their work. The media, initially critical, began recognizing the foundation's efforts. Public opinion shifted as reports highlighted the success stories and benefits of Sophia and Carla's work. The foundation became a symbol of hope and transformation, inspiring other organizations to follow suit. The Ferreiras, now more united than ever, discovered the value of compassion and honesty. They realized that actions benefiting the community were the true form of wealth. The foundation became a lasting legacy to prevent future generations from making the same mistakes. Carla, reflecting on her journey, felt immense gratitude for Sophia and the opportunity to make a positive impact. She knew she had found a greater purpose beyond seeking justice for her brother. As the sun set over the Ferreira mansion, now a symbol of hope, Carla, Sophia, and the others involved knew there was still much work to be done. However, their commitment to doing good and promoting justice made them ready to face any challenge. The story of Carla, the Ferreiras, and the lottery ticket became a powerful example of change and healing. It demonstrated that despite the toughest circumstances, there is always a chance for improvement and a path to true justice.